We need the power of the Holy Spirit. We need to trust in God. We need to walk through this world the same way that Jesus walked through this world. And you know, in the Old Testament, in those cultures, they treated women horribly. And then Jesus comes on the scene and he honored women. He ministered with women. First people, two people that saw him after he was resurrected were women. He honored, he loved women. And so we need to take that model and repeat it if we're going to be the men that God's called us to be. From New Life Ministries, this is Going Deeper with Stephen Arterburn. I'm Stephen Arterburn. And Going Deeper is all about taking the tough issues, the hard issues of life, looking a little bit deeper inside so that we can gain some insight into our lives. Hi, Steve Arterburn here, and we're going through the alphabet here on Going Deeper. And the letter that we're dealing with today, of course, is the letter P. Now, I can't address any other topic when we're doing this unless it's pornography. Well, the second letter in pornography is O. But every word I'm going to give you to remember what to do about this little problem here starts with an H. And the first word is the word harm. A lot of times we get caught up in this, and especially in the beginning, and we think, well, what harm does it do? It's not harming anybody. But it really is. It's harming you, first of all, because it's teaching you that a woman is to be used by you, and that you don't need an emotional and spiritual and psychological connection in any kind of sexual experience. And so you're harming yourself because you're not going to be a very good partner. And you don't even know it when it's the problem that you have in connecting with a woman. Secondly, if you're married, of course, it's harming your wife. Many women, when they find out that their husband has been using pornography, they say, that's worse than an affair. And that doesn't mean you should go out and have an affair. But the point is that you're looking at all this stuff and she can never either do that or be that or look like that. And it just really is such an insult to be betrayed in that way. So there's a lot of harm. And of course, we know that men that really get into pornography are not very good sex partners. And in fact, you stop wanting to have sex with a woman. And we also know that the more you're into pornography, the more it harms your relationship and the more kind of angry and bitter and resentful you get of your wife. And if you're not married, all of this is going to become an issue in your marriage. And you might think, that, well, once I'm married, this will all go away. Boy, are you in for a shock. It does not go away. So how do we do something about this? Where do we start? Well, you really have to start with another word that starts with H, and that's the heart. What is it that's in your heart? You say love, but is it more duplicity? In other words, I have some feelings, but boy, I've got this other private life over here, and it's not very nice at all. So even though I say I'm loving or feel some love, actually, my heart is split right down the middle. Every adolescent and every young man, and many times it's never happened for grown men, your job is to integrate everything into a healthy, whole person. And so when we have a divided heart, often we might have everything all in place. Our intellect, our thinking, the spiritual world in which we live, and the beliefs that we have. And then way over here, split off from it all, is our sexuality. It's not integrated into the rest of us. It's this thing over here that we don't even talk about. We don't tell anybody about it. It's separate. And it's sick. So we have to open up that box. We have to get the secret out. We have to confess, open up to somebody that can help us. And then we start to watch our heart become integrated together and whole. That's really the goal. We want to see people have a whole heart, not a split heart. Now, next word that starts with an H is habit. A lot of people think they have a bad habit. But you don't have a bad habit, you have an addiction. And this addiction is something that is far beyond anything many of us understand, because it's just as much an addiction as if you were shooting heroin into your veins. You see, because when you shoot heroin, there's a chemical that goes in you that releases chemicals in the brain that produce the high. Well, you know that those same kind of neurotransmitters and receptors and all that kind of stuff, that's happening with pornography. Now, when you use heroin, there's a big spike in dopamine based on the amount of heroin you're shooting through your veins. Pornography, it's not quite that high a spike. Well, that's good news or bad news? Well, it's bad news, because you don't know it's there so much, and so it just gradually goes from habit to addiction. With heroin, pretty much, early on, addiction. But with this habit, it becomes an addiction over time. Well, fortunately, there's another H word called hope. There's a lot of hope for anybody that's stuck in this pattern. And you got to ask yourself a question. Do you want to go through life being the dirty little boy looking at dirty pictures, waiting for your wife, did I say wife or mommy, to catch you? Or do you want to be a man? There is hope for manhood. But you need another H for that to happen. That's the healing community. Men become men in the company of men. Iron sharpens iron. So maybe the last thing you want to do is be with a group of men. But that healing community is what helps us go from having an extreme limitation that we'll never ever fix on our own to having the power to be sure this is not impacting any part of our life anymore. Now at New Life, we do a weekend called Every Man's Battle. And one of the greatest benefits is you go from thinking I'm the only one that's got this problem to really a shame-free place where everybody's dealing with the same thing and there is a way out and you do it together. And I think it's one of the most healing communities that's established. And I know guys that went 15 years ago, and every week they're still talking to the same people and they're reporting back and they're talking about struggles or victories, and they have an online or on the phone healing community. Some meet in groups together, and it's just an absolute phenomena to see this happening over such a long period of time. But they've realized if I can have the strength, the insight, and the connection with other men, and that produces the kind of healing that I'm experiencing, then why wouldn't I do it if I could? If you never try it, if you never take a risk, if you never do it afraid, then you'll never do it, and you'll never get to experience that. It all comes down to this. It comes down to this word holiness. God didn't call us to do pretty well. He called us to be holy. What does that mean? It means we're set apart, we're different. And we can't do that on our own. We need the power of the Holy Spirit. We need to trust in God. We need to walk through this world the same way that Jesus walked through this world. And in the Old Testament, in those cultures, they treated women horribly. And then Jesus comes on the scene and he honored women. He ministered with women. First two people that saw him after he was resurrected were women. He honored, he loved women. And so we need to take that model and repeat it if we're going to be the men that God's called us to be. And here's what I think a lot of people have thought maybe it isn't possible anymore. Happiness. There's this word called joy, kind of like, well, we're feeling okay even though everything has been lost. We've still got this joy. So like in spite of, we feel, but happiness is different. Happiness is this state of well-being and gratitude all folded into some optimism about life and a lack of this deep, dark shame from a secret life that nobody knows about for now, or at least we don't think they know about it. That's where I want you to be happy. Now maybe you're a woman. Well, two things. This all applies to you too. And there was a time when people said women didn't get into pornography. Women were never sex addicts. Oh yes, they do now. And it's quite common, very common. And sometimes the man gets you into it, then he leaves. But there's hope for you. Also, you might be a woman married to a man who's struggling. You don't have the power to change that guy. And if you would call us, we'll tell you about how to get him to go to every man's battle, and that could be the beginning of a level of happiness you never thought possible in your marriage. So that's the letter P. It's all about pornography. I hate that. But man, there's so much hope, help, healing, and even on the other side of it all, happiness. So that's the letter P. Guess what we're going to talk about next time? The next letter in the alphabet. Thanks for joining me for Going Deeper. Thank you for joining me for Going Deeper. I hope something I've said may have helped just a little bit. If you have a question you'd like me to answer or comment, just email me at stevesocial@newlife.com. I'll see you next time.
If you want to support Going Deeper with Stephen Arterburn, be sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. And if you know someone who would benefit from this episode, be sure to share it with them. See you on the next Going Deeper with Stephen Arterburn from New Life Ministries.